Well, Donald Trump officially signed the MOU today with the Iran deal, which is basically, again, just a deal to make another deal or to negotiate for another 60 more days. But Israelis are really having a tough time with this, just vehemently. Not just the Israelis, but also in the United States. The Israel first shills are losing their minds, And it's starting, initially I was like, okay, this is just an extension, which it is. Don't get me wrong. It is just an extension. But seeing how they're so angry about it felt liberating. it felt liberating. So, I mean, Laura Loomer, she posted a photo of Marco Rubio, and she made a tweet earlier. She said, Marco Rubio doesn't look happy, which I've told you guys for a long time. Again, this Iran deal is to make an extension, but I've said within the Trump administration, if you guys think Donald Trump is a bad president, if you think Donald Trump is a neocon, if you think Donald Trump is Israel first, you just better pray that Marco Rubio never gets a seat in office. I will stand by this. There's nobody that is more of a threat to the planet than Marco Rubio. The more I really start to understand how he operates mentally, how his decision making is, do not get this guy in office ever. If we do, it's hell. It's hell. But it's not just him that's upset, who's a bought-out Israeli puppet. More than any others, just staunchly wants to blow up the planet. It's really all of them. So first off, let me just go ahead and show you this video here when Trump was signing the MOU today during a dinner in France. So here it is, having his signature, getting a nice photo op. French President Emmanuel Macron was telling everybody to clap. So he'll about to do it right now. Let's see here.
Bravo.
Haven't seen him smile all day. I mean, every single video, not a single smile. So here it is. Now, Trump was talking about, here's a clip of why Trump stated he did this. Robert Pape stated he did it because Trump buckled under the pressure of economic collapse. So let's take a quick listen to this short clip here.
So the one thing I didn't want to see is I didn't want to see economic catastrophe. If you get this going, that could have happened. But all I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace, the stock market shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on the stage, other than me, of course. Let's see. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Is the stock market more brilliant than you?
No, sir.
Oh, that's a terrible statement. All right. The stock market is quite brilliant. And every time we said something...
All right, I correct myself. He did smile there, but so what he did say though, what Trump just did say is that yes, it was because of the fact that the global economy was going to hell. It just simply was not possible to continue this war for as long as possible. Now, and there's so many other videos of Trump criticizing Israel's actions in Lebanon and everything else. Here's a photo of the MOU being signed on the Iranian side. So, this is it's making big headlines right now. Now, this is what I wanted to tell you guys. Basically, now that this is being signed, the amount of Israelis going on air stating how this is the worst thing ever, of course, along with Ben Shapiro. Here's one.
Gathering your own thoughts, knowing what's been reported versus what we know. What's your perspective on this agreement, such as it stands?
The perspective from Israel is exactly what Dan said. This is a capitulation to the Islamic Republic of Iran at a time that America had the upper hand, and America still has options. We're going to see Iran being pumped full of oil money up front before it dismantles a single centrifuge. That money is going to get pumped into Iran's ballistic missiles, back into its proxy armies, back into the forces of repression, and Iran will be more dangerous than ever. There is concern in the Israeli intelligence community. The Iranian regime has absolutely no intention of stopping the nuclear program or even reaching a final agreement after 60 days. I believe it's been reported the CIA also suspects Iran is not serious about ending the nuclear program.
So you could tell they're just really not having a good day with it. So now this is what I'm going to tell you. Again, it's not the most difficult part is still ahead of us. It's still ahead of us. But this is why I'm starting to notice there is a difference when it comes to the different kinds of Zionism. And now I'm telling you guys what I'm starting to recognize we need to do to actually weaken Zionism. This is my plan. This is what I've discovered over the past, I'd say the past year and a half especially, is when I started to kind of recognize how Zionism gets weaker. You weaken Zionism by weakening Zionism's affinity to power. That is simply what you do. You weaken Zionism's affinity to power. There is power and there is money. Like you could say weaken Zionism's affinity to power and money. And Zionism so far has really been in lockstep with power and money. It really is. The interests of power and money and Zionism have been going hand in hand. It's been like that. I think my entire life it's been like that. I've never really noticed a moment when the interests of Zionism diverged from the interests of money. It just not so starkly to where a decision had to be made and the world chose the money over Zionism. That doesn't happen that often. When the war with Iran first started, when it first broke out, what I started to notice right off the bat is that what ended up happening is Trump promised he was going to nuke Iran, and then he capitulated, and he stated the oil markets the Strait of Hormuz is going to open back up. Everything was going to be great, and he immediately stated that the peace deal is on, the one that Iran proposed, and then Iran made it seem like they won, and they started celebrating in the streets. It was a big thing. We all remember this. At the time, I thought it was actually a done deal. Little did I know immediately Trump was going to flip the next day. But what it did show me is that Trump capitulated to the markets. And he capitulated to where he was swearing at Iran. He was threatening Iran. He said an entire civilization will die tonight. And he capitulated so quickly when he realized they weren't going to capitulate because the markets watching the markets dwindle terrified him so much. So this is a moment where what we started to notice is that when the world started to freak out, Japan was running low. Japan is a major net importer of oil. They're not producing anything. So there are some countries that were really struggling during the Iran war that are still struggling because they don't produce oil like the United States. Europe doesn't produce oil the same way the United States does. So they were feeling the effects even more so. It was more detrimental to the countries that don't produce and rely fully on oil imports. And they put massive pressure on the United States, like, hey, something has to, this can't go on, something has to give. This was a moment where the entire world was struggling. Zionism wanted it to keep going on. Zionism, the military-industrial complex, wanted to keep going on. The financial-industrial complex didn't. The financial-industrial complex is all of these rich foreign investors wanting to put in money places, putting in money into the UAE, putting in money into Saudi Arabia. They wanted things to end. They want to make sure their investments were safe. While on the other side, Zionism was just going in the opposite direction. And the moment that the interests of Zionism and the financial markets went in opposite directions, the world chose financial markets. Usually Israel, usually Israelis, usually the pro-Israel mob, they never even create a situation. They never allow themselves to create a situation in which Zionism and the financial markets don't go in tandem because typically they have massive influence and they're very involved in those places, and they typically never allow Zionism, or just Zionism naturally just doesn't deviate that way. But it did. So now why am I stating this? Because I'm starting to think we should really capitalize on this more. I think that, and it's difficult to do, but I think that the world is just is going to naturally unfold in this direction, is that Israel has to be perceived as more and more of a threat to financial markets. It is now more than ever perceived as the biggest threat to stability and to peace, which is simply true. It has to be seen as the biggest threat to financial investments from international bankers. That's what Israel has to be perceived as. And I think that as time goes on, we can really, we can start to push this more. The rich Gulf oil countries, they really struggled during this war because of the fact that they portrayed this magical image of security. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, they portrayed this image of security, and rich international bankers, they love security. If they see a country and they're like, that country is secure, that country is wealthy, we're going to go ahead and put our investments into that country gains wealth. When the Iran war started, all of these rich countries, all of these rich Gulf oil countries that were seen as that had an image of stability, that shattered when images started to get bombed, when images of bombs started happening in the UAE. Dubai put a prison sentence on individuals that take pictures of what's going on and posting it. They put a $50,000 fine and prison sentences if anybody in the UAE posted photos of Iranian strikes in the UAE. Why would Dubai, or why would the UAE put such a big, massive fine, a prison sentence? on individuals that post photos because of the fact that missiles getting blown up in the UAE is such a detriment, is such a detrimental shattering of the image that it portrays of security. It would terrify investors. So to them, putting that sort of pressure on their public is worth it because they need to make sure they stay rich. They need to make sure they stay rich. Long term, we have to make, the more Israel's a liability to not just to the United States, but to the entire planet, the more the planet is simply just not going to be able to put up with Israel, even if they want to, even if they're staunchly Zionists, they simply won't be able to because Israel's such a detriment to financial markets. I think Iran showcasing this with the Strait of Hormuz, that actually was a moment where, okay, now Iran does have a massive deterrent, and Iran's deterrent, which is shutting down financial markets, was enough to actually make Zionism lose in this one instance. But again, we're not done yet because Israelis always have a trick up their sleeve. So I know people in the comments are going to be like, Wally, you're so short-sighted. Wally, whatever's happening behind the scenes, I promise you that Israelis are fine. I'm well aware. I'm well aware that Israel is going to figure out a way to destroy things. They always do. I'm well aware that Israel now, what we're going to see going forward is what? Israel's going to restart the war. A false flag, but I don't think Israel even needs to do a false flag because I don't think where Israel is at currently, I don't think they even, the hardliners they're all hardliners. I don't think the Israelis really give a damn anymore about their image because it's already so shattered. They've already been restarting the war and everybody's been seeing it. So what is it to them to just restart it one more time? I don't think it's much, but they could. Laura Loomer, she posted a very weird tweet as well. I think Anna Kasparian quoted that or something. Where is it? Here it is. We have a massive munitions crisis now, and the Islamic enemies and our adversaries all around the world are well aware of that. We are sitting ducks, for the next 9/11. Part of me thinks the next 9/11 will be done with drones. What is that? What's that about? Why? I mean, the fear-mongering, of course, but so specific. It's odd. It's like they're planting the seeds. A little bit like they're planting the seeds, like they're edging us on to what we should expect. Like, here another extremist attack. That wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good. It's a little bit of that. So you could tell, like, I mean, if anything, Laura Loomer would be happiest if something like that, to God forbid, were to happen, because to her, immediately she would be like, "See, I'm right." And what would happen after that? War would start. More bombing would start in the Middle East. That's exactly what they want. So you could see why now they're starting to recognize, okay, this is where things could happen. I don't think Israel would be able to get away with it. Well, they get away with a lot. I don't think the public wouldn't believe it. If something like that were to happen, the public wouldn't believe. The majority, at least a decent amount of the public, aside from people that are brainwashed by mainstream media, they would recognize immediately that this is a false flag attack. They would recognize it immediately. It wouldn't fly. Now, what I find interesting separately, and there's a lot of other things. Oh, what was it? Lindsey Graham, U.S. Senator, South Carolina. Lindsey Graham stated, "I had just had a very lengthy and productive discussion with Steve Witkoff about the play regarding the state of play regarding Iran. After this discussion, it is my opinion that signing the MOU will be beneficial to the United States in as much as the Strait of Hormuz will begin to open and the hostilities with Iran will stop." And it goes on. He says the expansion of the Abraham Accords and normalizing relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel is President Trump and my ultimate goal. I think that is best achieved by creating economic stability. You read that again? Economic stability. You see how that's being centered there? For the United States, the region, and the world, as well as the cessation of hostilities. The signing of the MOU will be an essential step to make that happen. Not going to happen. I mean, Saudis are saying keep dreaming. Saudi Arabia is just not going to join the Abraham Accords for peace with Israel. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that because I have so much trust and love with the Saudi government. I'm saying that because it's so obvious on the ground what's happening. What is Saudi Arabia doing? It's not using Palestine. That's the wrong word. But Saudi Arabia is strengthening its regional and global diplomacy right now by pushing with France the two-state solution initiative. They're doing this with France. Just a year and a half ago, they met, or a year ago, at the UN in New York, they put forward, France and Saudi Arabia, the plan for a two-state solution, the implementation. You can believe whatever you want about that, but 140 countries are on board with that initiative, even though the United States is not on board with that, nor obviously Israel. This past week, a year after this UN conference happened, this past week in France, there was also a conference on a two-state solution. They brought, I believe, Israeli non-government groups and Palestinian non-government groups to talk about moving forward with a plan for a two-state solution. Saudi Arabia and France were they're the ones who put that conference together. So Saudi Arabia has been working on this diplomatic initiative. They're not just going to drop a diplomatic initiative when 140 countries are now looking at them for it. So it's not just about Palestine now, but it's also about the fact that they have on board 140 countries. To them, that's a successful, that's a successful diplomatic win. They're not just going to drop this when now they look like a leader. They look like a peace leader among all of these countries. Diplomatically, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. I can't see it happening because it wouldn't be beneficial to them. But regardless, he can keep dreaming. That's fine. Now, what's interesting, though, is look who quoted that. It was J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance stated, "Thank you, Lindsay. The president's coalition is uniting behind this leadership and the vision for a safer, more peaceful, and prosperous world." So J.D. Vance was on the Megyn Kelly show yesterday, and Megyn Kelly asked him about neocons, and he said the reason that neocons keep winning is because they get back up the next day and they keep trying. Something along those lines. What I see, what I've noticed especially, and I said this in my video yesterday, that if you look at how things are going within the Trump administration, there are flavors of Zionism where some are Zionists because they want power and money, and then some are Zionists because ideologically they're actually Zionists. Trump is not an ideological Zionist. He wants power and money, so he has an affinity towards Zionism because Zionism tends to be aligned with power and money. There are many other examples of this. Marco Rubio wants power and money, so he's aligned with Zionism. There are others ideological. Mike Huckabee, he's ideologically a Zionist because of religious reasons. Same with Pete Hegseth. Same with all of these, Israelis that are in the West Bank, these West Bank settlers. To them, it's ideological. It's not to these people that just want power and money. Azalea Banks, the rapper, African-American female rapper that was on X, and she became staunchly Zionist. Not ideological. It was for power and money. She said it out. She said it herself. I have everything to gain from being pro-Israel. That's just, there's a lot of politicians that just frankly state that out loud. The reason that's important to understand this is because in a situation like this where power, money, and Zionism diverged, what ended up happening is J.D. Vance, he was the one who seemed to be pushing a little bit more about these, about being a bit more focused on the money, the power of the financial markets. Just slightly, just a teeny bit. And he made that statement with Megyn Kelly, and you can kind of tell because what's happening right now, who do the Israelis hate and who do they love? Laura Loomer loves Marco Rubio. She stated what she said about J.D. Vance today. She trashed on J.D. Vance today. What was going on as well? I mean, keep in mind, J.D. Vance is backed by Peter Thiel. He's just like a puppet, just like the rest of them. So he'd never be anti-Zionist. He's just Zionist. He's a Zionist. But they differentiate in sometimes their approaches. Where is it? Let me find it. Where Laura Loomer talked about J.D. Vance. She just directly called out J.D. Vance that what's happening right now is because of the vice president. Somewhere in here, so many America First people that's being normalized. Where is it? Trashing on the Pope here. I'm just thrilled about Trump. Just thrilled that Trump said that he would continue dropping bombs if the deal never went forward. Again, now she's trashing on Catholics, which she always loves to do. Iran is an Islamic theocracy. Again, trashing Iran. Where is it? I'm almost certain that I read something about how she was trashing J.D. Vance. You guys are just gonna have to take my word for it. But anyways, Marco Rubio doesn't look happy. Somewhere in there, she was basically saying that this is the vice president that's really pushing for this deal to go through, and she was very much so against it. A lot of Israelis feel the same way, and you could definitely, it's very, very obvious when you're reading their statements. I'm not going to be able to find it right now. Very obvious when you're reading their statements. There was also, I showed you guys yesterday, there was a New York Times of Israel article both Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and the Times of Israel article stated that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are betraying the fact that they're Jews. They're backstabbing Jews. That's what the Times of Israel blatantly said. It stated that they're not good Jews because they're forgetting where their true home is. This is a Times of Israel article. This is not my quotes. It stated that they're forgetting what their true home is. And I made a full video on it. Just scroll down my feed and see it yesterday. Why would the Times of Israel state that? First off, Jared Kushner, it literally is staunch. I mean, one of the most, he's so Zionist. He's so Zionist. He's so Zionist. Steve Witkoff, so Zionist. They're always on the Western Wall. They're always on the Western Wall. He is ideologically and financially a Zionist for both reasons. For both reasons. It's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But there was talk in the media that it was Jared Kushner and J.D. Vance working on kind of settling the deal while Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth were against it. The Israelis, that set them off and they went berserk. I personally think, even if none of this is true, even if Israel is fully in lockstep with all of it, which I know a lot of my followers probably think that's the case, even if that's the case, we should just capitalize on making sure the media continues to speak about the rift, because Donald Trump is very easily manipulatable. So if he thinks that if things start to percolate and you have one Israeli or one Zionist like Mark Levin, for example, say something critical of Trump or trashing on Trump, that might be a good thing, because Trump's ego is so big that if he feels like somebody's trashing on him, then he might be willing to drop Israel just to satisfy his ego. I say capitalize on that. I made a tweet about it like right before this video, and there's a video right now of Mark Levin that I played earlier where Mark Levin is losing it, and he says, Donald Trump likes dictators, likes the Turkish dictator. I think it's this one here.
The president of the UAE. The president likes the president of the UAE. The president likes the monarch that runs the UAE, likes the monarch that runs Qatar, the monarch who runs Saudi Arabia, the dictator who runs Turkey, the dictator who runs Egypt. He's very upset with the elected prime minister of Israel.
He's saying the president of the United States, Trump, likes Turkey, the dictator of Turkey, the dictator of Egypt. That's what he said. Now imagine, I made a tweet. I was like, imagine if somebody within Trump's circle goes up to Trump the same way Laura Loomer whispers in Trump's ear and always likes to start drama, the same way Laura Loomer did it about Tucker Carlson. How immediately when Trump first struck Iran, Financial Times wrote an article saying one of the first people that Trump called up after he struck Iran, the first strikes on the very first day, was Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer! She didn't call him up, he called her up because he wanted praise. Right now, Trump wants praise. He wants praise right now. He just signed this deal. It was public. He wants praise. He needs to satisfy his ego. Who do you think he's going to call right now for praise? You think he's going to call Laura Loomer for this praise? No, absolutely not, because she's not going to praise him for this. You think he's going to call Mark Levin for praise right now? No, absolutely not, because he doesn't support this. So Trump still needs his fixing of praise because he has a mental illness. I'm not even saying that as a joke. I think we can all agree that Trump there's an ego problem. This is not even funny. We're just being honest now. This is a mental thing. Mentally, it's off. This is just the truth. We know he's obsessed with praise. He's seeking it right now. That is fact. He's seeking praise. So where is he going to go? He's going to go towards the anti-war people right now. He's going to lean towards them. So he's going to have to scout and find, where's the anti-war people that I can call up right now that will praise me for making this decision. We need to capitalize on that. These anon Twitter accounts and everything, capitalize on that. And they need to make it seem like there's a rift between the Mark Levins and the Trumps. And Trump. They need to increase that rift, because what's going to happen is somebody like Mark Levin is going to say something stupid like that, stupid for their interests. And when that happens, we capitalize on it. And we're like, look, the Israelis are trashing on Trump. How do you think Trump would react to that? He wouldn't go back up to the Israelis and be like, you guys love me. No, he'd be like, oh yeah, you're gonna trash on me. I'm the king of the planet. I'm amazing. I'm the best person. I'm the best person to ever touch this planet. And he's gonna double down, and he'd be like, you know what? Fine. Then I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna show Netanyahu, because it's his ego. It's like the Iranians. They brought senior psychiatrists on their negotiating team, and they started stating that after they brought the psychiatrists on, they started seeing the negotiations run smoother. We have to act like psychiatrists. We have to act like psychologists. We have to treat Trump and treat how to politically meander this situation as if we're dealing with a mentally incapacitated person, because we are. So that's all I have to say there. I mean, I think so far, I think that this is good. And if tomorrow it just so happens that, you know, the war restarts and then Trump is fully back in lockstep with Israel and the Israelis are all happy again, which will happen, something like this will happen, then at least we can relish right now in the fact that the Israel shills are angry that bombs are not being dropped on innocent people. Let's at least like, you know, let's just meditate on that. It's nice. It's a nice feeling. It doesn't happen too often. Let's relish in that. Last thing I was going to say is that right now, what we also notice, of course, is what's happening. We're starting to see that all of these Israelis and these Zionists are going on X and stating, see, for everybody that stated that Trump is totally bought out by Israel and that, you know, Jewish people control the government. See, like, clearly that's not true. Obviously, like, see, so why don't you guys just, like, be quiet? Okay, if that's how you feel about it, isn't that exactly what you wanted, though? Isn't what the ADL wants is to end all of these stereotypes? Isn't doing things like this where Israel doesn't get its way the best way to beat these stereotypes? So why wouldn't you guys be happy right now? Yeah, why don't you guys talk about how this isn't, see, it proves that, like, we actually don't control everything. Isn't that what you guys want? So why don't you just, you know, enjoy that? Isn't that what you want? The Anti-Defamation League, all of these laws, being put in place to stop anti-Semitism, the IRA definition. The best way to stop anti-Semitism is by proving that those things are just simply not true. Then be happy about that. Right now, they're going crazy on social media stating, see, okay, cool, then just be happy about it and be quiet. Because now this is how you make people actually not have those belief systems. So why don't you just be happy about it? If the United States reeled in Israel and whipped Israel, then maybe people wouldn't say that Israel controls the United States. So why don't you guys be happy about it and let that happen? You guys are doing everything possible to make sure that never happens. How about if you actually want to stop seeing hate directed, self-inflicted hate, then let the United States reel in Israel and stop doing all of this sort of stuff. Then it stops. So here's a situation where, okay, it didn't end up working out the way these Israelis currently want based on what the media is saying. That's good for you guys. Do you guys not recognize how that's actually good for your interests? I would just like zip it and enjoy the fact that this is actually good to destroy stereotypes for you guys long term, because that's what you tell us you want. So accept that. I mean, it's so short-sighted for me. I don't understand how they, you know, Israel is so pro-war, pro-this, has this big vision for a greater Israel, and then at the same time so short-sighted in the future, unless, of course, that's what it wants. It wants all of this hatred, which is true, because it does benefit from that. It brings more Jewish people into Israel. They escape and they flee to Israel. That's what they want. They want to expand and increase Israel's population and settle more. So maybe in that respect, it is exactly what they want. Anyways, guys, that is it for this video. I've talked your guys' heads off. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, if you guys haven't yet, the best way you can support my channel right now genuinely is just consider joining as a member. So if you click the join button below, it has the stars on it. Click that right now. You can join as a member. You get to see member only videos, and then you can toss in some fun emojis. I added more emojis recently. So I think that there's the parrot one, the JFK one I've always had on, the alien versus predators one on the Statue of Liberty. You guys know which one I'm talking about? If you do, just toss it in the comments. So that way I can actually, because I keep asking you guys to do that. I've only seen like 1 or 2 people. So I'm like, do they even work? The emojis. But anyways, so consider joining as a member. You could do that. Just click the join button. Otherwise, guys, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye, everybody.